Welcome to another episode of MyData Zurich. Today with community innovation through city sandboxing with our guest speaker Kelk from Estonia. Before I pass the word, I would like to say a few words about MyData. My name is Peter James. I'm the MyData Zurich Hub Lead, and we are running regular webinars which are recorded. Here you see the classic picture of MyData with all the different types of personal data. Today the focus will be mostly on public services. And with that said comes my usual slide about the personal data in the digital space. So you might remember in the very early days, which I call the data stone age, data was sent back and forth in a very uncontrolled way. Then in the data middle age, we had the big tech companies with their server farms running and sometimes owning all their data, or our data to be precise. And what MyData wants to achieve is a more human-centric approach with built-in privacy by design. So that's one of the main reasons for MyData. Then there is one important element, actually there are many elements, but this is one of the important ones, the MyData operators, which is some sort of a data fiduciary for the respective individuals, because data is typically not so easy to handle by the individuals, specifically if it's being to be structured. And the MyData operator is typically the fiduciary for the individuals with a number of things to consider. I don't repeat all them here, but you are free to check out the webpage. You find more information there. MyData Zurich was founded in 2019. We are currently leadership team of 3. So beside myself, it's André Gollier, who is the president of the Swiss Data Alliance, and Jonas Bertschi, who is the managing director also at Swiss Data Alliance, beside a number of other activities. We also have a LinkedIn channel, so follow us if you want to be notified about upcoming events. We have actually 2 platforms. One is more person-centric and the other one is more about local data ecosystems. So that's in separate LinkedIn showcases or companies, how the way LinkedIn is organizing that. On the other hand, we have a YouTube channel. I have a number of playlists in the meantime because we have different topics and you can best find it along the playlist. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to get regular information about our recordings. And recently we have short versions from our full recordings, so it's easy to watch. And of course, you're always welcome to join MyData. It's support of all these persons who are running these events. Currently, there are almost 1,500 organizations or individuals who have signed the declaration. Doesn't cost anything. And of course, if you want to join with a small fee, then you can do that as well. And with that, I'm already at our today's program. So after my short welcome note, you'll hear about the vision for the future, about city sandboxing from Kelk. Then we have time for a discussion, and we finish after 1 hour max on the official part, so everybody can take his other activities. Of course, if you have additional questions, we are here to answer these questions. We'll turn off the camera, so you can probably ask the questions which you normally don't dare to ask. And with that said, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Kelk. He is from Minor, an Estonian company, head of business and innovation management, and he has 2 master degrees of the University of Tartu. With that, thank you very much, Silver, for joining our webinar, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for the nice introduction. So I will share my slides. So, like I said, I call from Estonia, the famous Estonia, and even this year from the European green capital, Tallinn. And the Ülemiste City we are going to talk about is just one part of Tallinn. This is not a separate city. It's rather a private district in Tallinn. But yeah, I try to keep this around our data activities. So my plan is to basically walk you through the story of how our human-centric smart city vision has guided us towards those data-driven projects and data partnerships, and how Minor has gradually transformed from being a real estate developer to rather to be an innovation ecosystem curator. And perhaps in the end, I leave this hanging question about our next steps, those next possibilities in terms of data collaboration and personal data inclusion to our smart city planning and, of course, operations. But I usually like to give a little bit historical context to what we do and why we do it. So actually, this place where Ülemiste City is situated, this has always been an innovation ground. It started already more than 150 years ago, when at the Soviet Empire, Russian Empire time, there was a rail wagon station or factory. So also a connectivity innovation and a very big thing at that time. In the first Estonian independence time and the later Soviet occupation time, the same area was transformed into other industries, and they produced their military equipment and innovations, also space technologies. And it was a very closed area. It was so secret, nobody could go there. It even didn't have an address. It only had a very secretive mailbox number, and that was it. And then in the 1990s, when Estonia regained independence, Minor Group, led by this gentleman, Ülo Pärnits and his family, privatized this pretty big area next to Tallinn city center. And then Ülo had this vision. He said that, yeah, we're going to build here a city. But his vision was that it's not going to be just another city next to just another airport or just another business park. So it had to be something more. In his vision, it was a place of innovation, new business models, new ideas, and basically an ecosystem that keeps Estonian young talents in Estonia and attracts new foreign talents to Estonia. Basically a district of smart business and future technologies. And this was actually the DNA of Minor Group as well, because it was a very curious company in the Soviet times. This company is more than 50 years old already. And in deeper Soviet times, it was basically the only one that experimented with new ideas, new business models, a little bit entrepreneurship. And it was not allowed at that time during the Soviet time. So besides finding the new business models and new business ideas, it was also about finding legal loopholes, shifting the mentality of stakeholders and so on. And actually in the 1980s, when Estonian state and bigger thinkers redefined the economic model for Estonia that has paved the success for the next decades and gave us a really big advantage over the other Soviet countries that also regained their independence at that time. Many of those people also came from that group. So it was always a group that attracted smart and bright-minded people with that kind of bigger ideas and bigger impact in mind. However, in the 90s, when we acquired that land, it was a dead zone, a devastating place. It was basically a ground zero next to Tallinn city center and between the airport. But with our gradual development, I think we have designed and built a pretty lively and beautiful city space, great architecture, interiors, lots of green areas, more importantly, active green areas with lots of events and street art, cooperation with universities and technology inclusion. So it has been a 15-20 year period so far, but we have already achieved quite a lot, but at the moment we are about 1/3 with our project. The 2/3 are still yet to be developed. But I think this picture gives you a little bit understanding that the strategic location of Ülemiste City is really important for its development and its ambitions. On one hand, we have the Tallinn International Airport, and on the other hand, on the right side of this slide, will be the Rail Baltic passenger terminal. This is this long-awaited high-speed train link that will connect Tallinn and Estonia to the Western Europe. So Ülemiste is situated right between those two main transportation hubs, basically acting as a gateway to Tallinn, gateway to Estonia. And this gives us a lot of opportunities. We of course started by building those business buildings and office buildings at first, but right now in the middle of this city, we have health district with already several health houses, the second one being built and third being planned. Then we have educational complex. We also have our own university, and later we will, in next phases, we will also develop more residential buildings. Perhaps we can mute because there's quite a lot of background noise. Thanks. So this is like one big project from the real estate development side, where we have really used a lot of data and that kind of insight that we have acquired so far with our activities. Because building such a big terminal next to us means, and the railway means, that we have had 5, 6, 7 years of convincing the city and the state of creating enough logistics routes underneath this new railway. So tunnels for pedestrians, cyclists, also for cars. These are not our hunches or guesses or wishes that we serve towards the city of Tallinn and the state. They are all data-backed decisions or claims, and this is one very acute example how our capabilities dealing with data and understanding the mobility patterns better than perhaps some other regions in Tallinn have really helped us, hopefully, to develop a very good solution for this terminal as well. Just a few more pictures showing how this part of Tallinn will transform, with lots of room for pedestrians, cyclists, green areas. And again, this is all something that in our further developments or previous developments, we have always measured and planned together with the help of data. But to wrap this part up, so I've talked about this local context, understanding where we are situated, understanding the restrictions, but rather those opportunities that come from that kind of logistics hub situation. And then there's the global environment that we very closely monitor as well, together with our research partners and our team, trying to understand what are those big megatrends in the world that actually shape and shift the well-being of the smart cities and the needs and the wishes of the citizens. And then there's this miner's history with its innovative and entrepreneurial DNA, and this vision that this district must be something more than just a business park, and that we should really empower the Estonian economy, not by just the real estate development, but by many other means. And this has basically gave us those Ülemiste City strategic goals that guide our work. And right now we are going through with we are developing with our colleagues our new innovation strategy, and this pretty much states that Ülemiste wants to be or will be a platform for innovation of human-centric developments and innovation. So it always means that its miner's goal is have been for a long time way beyond just this physical space or environment that we create, but by many services, and also in the last years with the help of those data projects that we have really tried to empower the community that we already have there in Ülemiste, and the one that will grow quite a lot in the coming years. And the community is already pretty significant, and the impact as well. This small area is already the third biggest economy in Estonia, just after the capital of Tallinn and the second biggest city, Tartu, with its economic impact. We have here about 500 companies and about 16,000 workers, students, and residents. And this is our community. And it, of course, gives us lots of opportunities for different services, but in our mind, it also gives us responsibility. We really feel that with such a community and with such logistics place, we really need to be the leaders of some new topics, for example, in terms of data spaces or data use in city planning and services planning. But it hasn't always been the case. I like this category of dumb smart cities, meaning that sometimes the vision of a smart city is way before the actual results or something visible in the physical space. And I think we have come through that period as well with Ülemiste, meaning that we always thought or we knew where we want to go. But when, for example, a foreign guest came to Estonia, landed next to Ülemiste City, visited this place, and for him, knowing and hearing about this famous Estonia, the fully digitalized country, or coming this year, and knowing that it's a green capital of Europe and so on, it all materializes in this Ülemiste City first. And I think this is a good place to do it because this is one of the best districts in Tallinn to show that. However, I think the demand to see something really astonishing was always bigger in the previous years. So this also gave us a little bit of push to actually put this smart city vision into actions more and more. And we started with, of course, solving our own problems. So the first thing that we did was to solve our parking problem, meaning that we wanted to make this finding a parking spot easier for our growing community. But it was not just about finding the right technology. From this very first project, we always kept in mind how much data we can acquire from those technologies, how we can use it, how we share this data with a service provider and between us, and all sorts of that kind of questions. And we tested through a lot of different solutions to really find the one that actually satisfied our needs. So it was not only solving the parking issue, it was from day one to actually think about starting to collect data and then starting to put those different sources of data together to actually address the issue of mobility much larger than just finding the right parking spot. And soon later after that came all sorts of other technology tests. The most known ones are several self-driving vehicles that have been tested in Ülemiste. Of course, they are the ones that are always very visible and cool and attract attention. But Ülemiste is a perfect spot for testing them as well. It's quite complex quite small, but still with lots of abilities in terms of roads, crosswalks, crossroads, and so on, to test such vehicles. And it's a private land and private roads, so we can be a little bit more flexible than the rest of the city, perhaps in some cases. So several Estonian companies have used Ülemiste as one of the first testing sites in their development journey. But for us, it wasn't always only those roads that we provided. Also, the other physical infrastructure was given to the mostly Estonian IT companies and technology companies for testing. Also the houses with their ventilation systems, cameras, other infrastructure objects. And again, in each of those projects, during the first of those discussions, we really wanted to understand what type of data they collect and how we can also make use of that. It was for a long time that kind of trial and error based approach from us, meaning that we didn't have that kind of clear baselines how we approach such projects and how this data is managed. But I think it just goes along with that kind of learning curve. But by this year, I think we have tested this service quite a lot, and we have just launched this Ülemiste City test city project more publicly. And we have, of course, improved our service offering as well. Now, instead of just offering this infrastructure for those technology companies to test, we also talk about the community and their engagement in that testing period and piloting period. And of course, the data that we have collected from lots of different sources, historical data and future projections and so on that we make available to those testing companies. And I really like this addition of community and data aspects because it makes Ülemiste a suitable testing place also for the companies that might not be present in Estonia or in Ülemiste. They might be fully digital solutions that just need that kind of user test base that they can find from such services as well. Again, from our side, it has taken quite a lot of rethinking and also technical development and that kind of governance side development to make it happen. And this process is still ongoing. We'll learn with each project. But this year, we are ready to accept more and more customers in that pipeline. So the other examples following that would be the kind of health prevention apps, sustainability nudging apps used by the end users, private citizens, and of course this data that we can back up with those projects is only beneficial for those testing companies. And it's not only the technology that we test. For me, actually, the most important aspect of testing in Ülemiste is actually facing the real customers or facing the real community. For example, with this courier vehicle that I showed before, it was not about the technical testing. Does it work or does it not work? It was more about testing the service model, how people actually react to this service model that they offer at the moment. What are the obstacles there? And then there are all sorts of other tests. For example, each year we have now taken this project of bike lanes, closing down some car roads, giving more room to the bikes. And it's not a marketing trick that we do each summer. What we learn each year is how to utilize the data in the planning phase, in the operational phase, and later analysis phase. And when after those projects, when we go and discuss those findings with the city of Tallinn, for example, this is the main lesson that we try to give them. The use of various layers of data from different types of sensors and surveys and all sorts of big data sources that really put in combined can give us so much more insight than just the pure observation of how this project actually went. And this is perhaps for me one of the most interesting projects in the test city that we have done. So I thought of showing, to wrap up this part really quickly, one video. I think so far this talk has been quite kind of salesy, and I think maybe it's the right question now to ask is Ülemiste some kind of a lighthouse project, a perfect example for others to follow, that we have solved everything in terms of data and projects and data sharing? Then definitely not. We are just taking the maybe not the very first steps, but still one of the first steps in that path. And I think we can't be compared with some of those utopian technocratic smart city projects that pop up maybe in Arabia or United States, that are often run by one technology company or funded by huge sums of money, that are built up from ground level in the middle of nowhere, considering all the technical capabilities and maybe also the data sharing capabilities. Ülemiste is rather an example of just a normal city, a normal transforming city. And Minor is an example of a real estate developer who is going beyond that and trying to offer more value to this community and the country with also this digital infrastructure besides this physical one. It hasn't been always a rosy road for us. We have, of course, made many mistakes, trial and error based, but I think this consistency has paid off. Right now, I'm pretty sure that we are considered in that domain one of the key leaders in Estonia, at least by trying and experimenting, continuously improving all of our activities. And this is something where we take that kind of leadership role in terms of the community as well. We have lots of webinars, seminars, also conferences where we always stress the data projects or the data thinking side. We invite great speakers all around the world to inspire us and our community. And I think this is one of the first steps. We won't take this road alone anyway. We want to engage our full community, including many of the smartest Estonian IT companies and service companies and innovative companies. But I think it first takes some time to actually get them inspired and knowledgeable about those opportunities that really lies in that kind of collaboration between us. And of course, from our side, it has taken to set up the team. So over the past years, we have been building up a team that is actually capable of addressing those topics, taking our company further and being that kind of good partnership for other external partners. So right now we have data strategists, business analysts, heads of digitalization and technology development and innovation managers, and of course external partners like several research groups and universities, and then private and public sector partners. And this is by now, I think, quite a sufficient team to actually put in the next gear and really start taking on some much bigger projects and ambitions. But again, it doesn't seem much perhaps to some kind of IT company or some dedicated organization, but for actually a classical real estate developer, this is a big thing. The amount of convincing in fortunately not in terms of our owners, but more about the financiers or external stakeholders has been a lot. But once they see the results that we have achieved in terms of transforming the city space or creating new services or making more educated guesses based on data, I think now everybody is rather convinced that we are taking the right steps with those projects. And of course, there have been a lot of planning in terms of the digital infrastructure, mapping where this data lies and how those connections are made, and of course, the governance side to set up proper security mechanisms, data governance issues, and so on. These have been very often in many smart city projects, the ones that are overlooked for quite a long time. Once those companies go through those initial projects, they just want to implement the new technology. They just collect data, but it remains siloed. And of course, we started that way as well in the very beginning. But the moment we realized the potential of actually putting those data sources together and find those synergies, I think now we have been rather concentrated on building those layers underneath in terms of governance and technical capabilities. And of course, advancing a little bit also with the projects. But the bigger projects can only be achieved when you have those elements ready. This is including this test city data sandbox that we mentioned. Getting this technical readiness has taken a while from our team. So all steps together, I think we are moving towards something that such slides show as a digital twin of a city or a smart dashboard. These are just some examples that I've learned from the internet. But if you look closely, on the first look, they look pretty cool and informing, but actually what they do is they mostly display statistics. They just count free parking spots or available rental bikes, and they just show you that kind of statistics. What we want to do with data in broad sense is much beyond that. So instead of just showing some data points, we rather concentrate on more sophisticated metrics. And those metrics we develop in our key development areas. So this is one of our data representations, what we call Ülemiste City radar. It shows our 5 key development areas, and behind each development area we have 15 dimensions and lots of indicators developed already. And these indicators and those metric systems are reflecting something bigger than just those individual data points. These are, for example, in environment, CO2 emissions, it can be city vitality, and that kind of social capital, that kind of more complicated metrics that involve lots of different data layers. So perhaps this scheme a little bit explains that. We have already quite a lot of data sources, different ones that we use, starting with service, and then of course the technological sensors, the big data from mobile positioning, all sorts of other research and open data sources. And now the next big step for us would be to also include the personal data and also the data from more data from the private sector. We have concentrated a lot on building the right infrastructure to handle it securely and efficiently, to build that kind of connections to our automation services and to our partners based on our current needs. And then together with the research groups, we concentrate on building those metric systems and indicator systems, not just to rely on those individual data points like many projects do. And a big help in that planning and the whole future city concept development has been the collaboration with universities. We have also initiated a private professorship in University of Technology in Tallinn, future city professorship led by Jenny Partonen at the moment. And this is, I think, a very good way how to combine that kind of bigger thinking about where the cities evolve, how they do it with the help of data, and also considering through those opportunities that lie in the data sharing between the private sector companies, the public sector, and of course including the personal data as well. So some other projects and use cases that we do with data involve mobility planning, healthcare data, environmental data. These are all that kind of focus topics where we place most of our research and operational interest. I wanted to touch this point that Estonia has been actually known for pretty good data infrastructure. We have actually all public services digitalized, and these services have functioned really well, and we are all very proud of what we have achieved. And from that point of view, there shouldn't be any problems in Estonia in terms of sharing the data, collecting the data, making it available through different partners, because we have this X-road system, and it is working still very, very fine. But in most cases, it works really fine for public services. And smart city services, of course, can be, also considered as public services. However, we rather work with private sector partners, and the ambition that we have in terms of environmental data, the health data, mobility data, and all sorts of other smart city domains, it actually moves cross-border, and there's so much more potential to gain from collaborating with other cities, not just inside of Estonia. Now the issue with X-road has been that it doesn't support very well the data collaboration between private sector partners, especially if there are more than few of those around one topic. it doesn't support too well cross-border data exchange. And I think these have been some kind of some technical limitations that have been hindering that kind of data economy growth in Estonia, and also held back personal data inclusion in that kind of innovation projects. So that I really see a huge potential in that kind of data rooms and data collectives approach for Estonia. And since the state has been, together with although private partners, but controlled and run by state, has been the developer of X-road system, I think now it's the time for Estonian private sector to step up and take a more leading role in creating those data spaces that are more specific to their own domain. Start collaborating with already the existing ones cross-border, and initiate a few of those also in Estonia to really take our innovation and collaboration in terms of data use to the next level. Like said, Ülemiste City is mostly looking at healthcare, mobility, sustainability topics. We have several personal data inclusion projects in the pipeline, also mostly in the healthcare sector. We are definitely interested in digital twins and those data metric systems projects. And we also like to take part in R&D projects, whether it be Horizon, Eureka, Eurostars, several national ones, and so on. So if those interests match with any of those that you have, we are definitely up for partnerships and your guidance. Because in the end, I think this part, me presenting Ülemiste City and our activities here today, is not so much about giving you some kind of advice or inspiration. It's rather asking that from you. Visiting MyData conference just a few weeks ago in Helsinki, it was really, really inspiring seeing what your community is already doing, how these data collectives have been set up, how effective they are. And I definitely see a lot of potential and catching up to do for Estonia, and especially Estonian private sector. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Silva. That's really impressive. Yeah, that's just a picture which I wanted to ask a few first questions. I'm really impressed. I think I should visit you rather sooner than later. So that looks really very nice. So this picture, is that an artist rendering? You mentioned that it's still being built, or is that already existing?
Part of that it is existing, but not all. So yeah, you are right. This is mostly rendering, but I would say like 1/3 of what you can see from here is already existing, and yeah, so it's evolving rather quickly. So you better come soon, so you can see also the transformation.
And a follow-up question from an architectural point of view. I see you have a mix of existing buildings, so rather old brick buildings, as I saw in some of the pictures, in a combination with brand new buildings. Is that the intention, to keep the existing buildings alive and restore them?
Yeah, this is definitely intention. So all those historical buildings come from that kind of Russian Empire rail wagon station time. And although it sometimes takes a lot more financing to renovate those houses, these are actually our best-selling articles in terms of real estate. If you are a cool IT company, then you rather pick that kind of old renovated building than the very, very new one. Although the very new ones are really, really good as well.
Yeah. On that note, I grew up in an industrial area as well, in Baden in Switzerland, which was the headquarters of Braun Boveri, and they had exactly the same issue. So they had these old buildings, and very often they have substances in there which makes the renovation really, really expensive. So still on the physical assets, you mentioned that you are installing new technology even in the old buildings. So I understand Minor, I was actually quite surprised to hear that Minor is a real estate development company. So what exactly are you developing? Are you just the brick and mortar, or I understand you're also developing some technology infrastructure? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
That was maybe a little bit misunderstanding. So being a real estate developer means that our main business by today in our group is this Ülemiste City project. So basically, this makes us the real estate developer. In terms of technology development, we rather believe in partnerships. So we very often take an active supporting role in developing some technology, maybe raising the challenge, being the mentoring side, or helping with our know-how, also our physical infrastructure. But we don't have that kind of technology team or technology development in-house on our own. However, we do develop software services in some degree that are related with our city operations. So we have, I think at the moment in the pipeline, 3 or 4 that kind of bigger IT projects that, again, usually doesn't go along with classical real estate development companies. They are more towards community, smart city services, and one of them is very purely about leveraging this smart city data, building those smart city management dashboards and operational or management systems.
That brings me to my next question. So we have a movement here in Switzerland about open government data, OGD. There are quite regular events, actually. I would assume you have something similar. So as you have all these sensors, so are you making this data available, and how are you doing that?
I think we are not at the level as you describe in Switzerland. This is our dream. And I think this isn't a too long distance dream, but we aren't at that level that we are already capable of making everything public at that level. However, the collaboration with the city of Tallinn, collaboration with universities, and of course now the collaboration with the testing companies that entered the test city project or program, these are all that kind of partnerships where we also share data as much as we can and as good as we can. But even this year, we have improved quite a lot about this data digital infrastructure, how we keep the data, how we manage it, and how capable we are of making it available to other partners more easily than we have been so far.
So if I get that right, so you're making the data available and interesting parties are using this open data sort of to develop apps and dashboards and whatsoever?
Not yet so specifically. So it's maybe not considered as open data yet. It's rather that if we discuss one specific project with, for example, let's take City of Tallinn, then together with our, explanations, suggestions, we do provide that kind of data that we can to back up this claim or that we see is beneficial for our partners. But I think it's not yet to be considered as open data at that level. So it rather is project-based, sometimes data set-based, what we are capable of sharing. But here again, after seeing and hearing everything at the MyData conference, I see we have lots of room for improvement here. But the best news is that we don't need to figure it all out ourselves. There are very good examples out there, very good technological solutions and the data governance solutions that we can hopefully adopt to transform this data sharing much rapidly to being more open and more inclusive of different companies and partners.
Yeah, that's a very, very difficult challenge. My background is in data, so I did my PhD thesis 30 years back in data management. And I see how difficult it is to make this data available. So in Switzerland, you can actually check it out. It's opendata.swiss. But what it is in reality, it's actually metadata. It's a list of data which is available. Unfortunately, it's not yet in a situation where every citizen would be able to use it directly. Maybe you can download some CSVs, but you cannot drag and drop together a dashboard so far. So that's still on the wish list. So we are not yet quite there. And this brings me to my next question about the culture and how the citizens are willing to deal with the data. I know it in the healthcare sector, so it's really a cultural difference. In the countries such as Switzerland, Austria, and Germany, they are usually very strict with their data. I understand that the Nordics are much more pragmatic. So how are your citizens willing to make their data available? Specifically, if it's public data such as traffic, that's not too bad, but healthcare data is certainly on the other end.
It's not uniform, definitely. There are definitely people who are more skeptical. They might even oppose it in no matter what. However, not only in Ülemiste City, in the whole of Estonia, we see more people who are rather waiting for somebody to take that data from their personal devices, from their own health applications, maybe some other clinics, and so on, that would actually improve the service that they get from the healthcare provider where they go. Estonians, I think we are not too careful in terms of that kind of data use and data sharing, again, because we have really enjoyed all those digital services that we have been using for the past 20 years. So I think we are very pro technology and pro data sharing, as long as we can trust who's keeping it, how it's used. And again, I think the culture thing is that Estonians can monitor how the public sector owned or controlled data is used that goes about them, who accesses it, how it's used in different services and so on. I think if you have that kind of regulations in place or that kind of tools for the citizens, also what we are missing today is perhaps the dynamic consent management. Yes, I consent today, but I can take it back or shift it at some point. Then I would say the majority would want that data sharing and services, and there will be less of those who actually oppose it.
Yeah, you mentioned the X road. So you had that, I think, for the last 10 years or something like that.
More. I think already 20 or something like that. I'm not like fully sure, but it has evolved a lot in time. But yeah, definitely more than 10.
So I still remember presentation of Kaspar Koyos, who was presenting that quite a few times, and his first slide was "My name is," and then his personal number. You could never do that in Switzerland. So that would be the social security number, and people are very reluctant to make it available.
Again, some little bit cultural differences. Yeah, this personal identification number is fully public in Estonia. In some sense, it might be too revealing in terms of the gender and exact date of birth and so on. So maybe we should change a little bit in the future this methodology, how we construct this number, but it has helped us a lot. And also the digital ID systems that we have, and these have been that kind of really critical building blocks on which we have built this digital framework of public services.
Are there many cases of misuse? I mean, that's the reason why people wouldn't like to disclose it.
Personal data.
Yeah, are there misuses of this data?
Yeah, as far as I know, of course, there always are misuses, but they are like so minor or so, they're not systematic, I would say. They are not that big bulks of data have been misused for some wrong reason. The most typical ones would be that someone in the public office would spy on their ex or something like that, looking at some kind of records. But again, since we all have that kind of tool to actually understand and see who accesses the data and why it's accessed, then these things show up pretty quickly. Estonian digital infrastructure has also been really strong in terms of that kind of security mechanisms and trust. We were the victims of the first national cyber attack back in 2007 that actually made us even stronger, because we then implemented lots of more that kind of control and security mechanisms to that framework. So I think for any person who actually digs into that framework, how data is managed and used in Estonia, they can be really satisfied or sleep well. We like this saying that we have been living in GDPR world for 20 years already, way before the others kind of received it. So I think from that strictness and the methodology, how we have set up all the base layers, we have pretty much high trust in what's coming for us in the future as well.
So obviously your citizens have a very good trust in your government then.
In our digital services, yeah, this is considered very high, and the satisfaction is also high, how they work. Yeah.
One thing about the community which really impressed me, so you designed this Ülemiste City for the community. You mentioned this artificial cities which are built from the scratch out in the nowhere. What you didn't say so explicitly, but what happened to most of them, these are dead cities, so nobody wants to live there. A few more thoughts about how you built the community, because that's the really interesting part.
This is a ever-going effort, I would say, at least in the beginning. You just need consistency. You just need that kind of right people, right engagement, good content that you provide. But I think we have taken that kind of route that there's a little bit of fun, but more of that kind of education or smartness. Those educational events that we have in the city all the time, I think these are attracting quite a lot of this, the attention of the community, and of course the other events as well. But actually right now we have, again, few that kind of technological data related projects in the pipeline to actually, from the developer side or miner side, Ülemiste City side, to engage more with those citizens, talents directly. Because so far, what we have done in the previous years, we have built up a very strong network with our clients and their HR managers or their community managers, and we have used them as that kind of leveraging or amplifying contact points. But yeah, there's a lot to gain if we can actually strengthen the relationship directly with the community. But it's always that kind of a mix of different value propositions that you provide for the community, not only, I don't know, sporting events or concerts. It's, I think, the educational part is really strong in Ülemiste City.
Is Ülemiste just an office city, or are there also normal apartments where people live?
Yeah, there are also apartments, but not too many at the moment. This is again a direction that we are taking at the moment and building up. And in the next, let's say, decade, the mix will be much more bigger in terms of office and residential buildings. We are doing it because our goal is to create a 24/7 city, meaning that it shouldn't be a business park that dies out after 5 o'clock. There should be life also in the evenings, in the weekends, because if we want to provide good value for our community, also for our customers, the companies, and we want to attract good services in this district. And good restaurants, shops, other services, they won't come to a place where they can operate only for 2 or 3 hours at the lunchtime in the working hours or working days. So this is on one hand a strategical move from our side, but also to actually make it more like a livable space, not only a place to work.
So I understand you're nevertheless offering events, also educational events. So people are then traveling to Ülemiste to join these events, or how is that working?
Yeah, that as well, of course. But I think the topics that attract most people outside the Ülemiste community and also from inside the Ülemiste community are the ones that are touching upon innovation topics, data topics. Our biggest conference that is held biannually is Future Forum. We just had it this year. It was great success, and it always has at least one that kind of side track about data, data-driven projects. Hopefully next years we can perhaps even concentrate more on the personal data inclusion side.
That is my last keyword, then we should wrap up. You mentioned the personal data, specifically the healthcare data. Is it more this convenience data from these wearables, or are you also taking real data, in quotes, from hospitals? How are you handling such data? That's sort of my hobby.
Yeah, it's basically the both. And this is a line that we are really just developing. So I don't have like really great practical examples yet to share, but this is a work in progress, meaning that this is just the right time where we work out that kind of governance principles, the technical principles. On one side, it is the wearable data, and we also have some testing companies and some companies that our group is also involved directly that are collecting such data, and then now it's the question how it can be used for to leverage other projects as well. But then we have this growing health district in the middle of the city. We already have the first health center. The second one is being built, and the third one will come someday soon as well. There are lots of clinics, and most of those clinics are operating cross-border, or they have that kind of international interest as well. If not business-wise, then definitely innovation or service development-wise. This is the main focus where I would put when we are talking about sharing the healthcare data. The patient movement between the public hospitals, the private sector hospitals, cross-border movement. We have a lot of foreign employees working in Ülemiste City, so servicing them with better service. This is all about that.
Yeah, I had one webinar about cultural differences in dealing with healthcare data between the Nordics and countries such as Switzerland and Austria. So I'll link it in the show notes. And I just had today a call about the Gaia X activity in the healthcare sector, actually trying to bring that to Switzerland. Are you working on similar initiatives?
I had some contact with Gaia X through my last position in another company. So we closely monitored the developments of Gaia X about 3-4 years ago. And this was the time when we really nudged the Estonian government and our CIO and CTOs and everybody saying that, hey, we should pay attention. If not go along at that moment, then at least pay attention what's going on in the world. I think this project has proven to be live, that kind of sustainable in terms of it's growing, it's starting to show results. And if Estonia wants to be on that kind of digital map and interact with other countries and really provide value for Estonian private sector as well, then this is something that we should really start following more. But right now, as far as I know, there aren't any that kind of data hubs related with Gaia X in Estonia at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we are overrunning already a little bit. I want to wrap it up. As I warned you, I have 2 sets of questions.
In summary, I would say for us, learning from our experiences, the first principle that we say is lead. If you already own a community, or you see that you have a large leveraging effect on specific industries, then taking a leadership role in innovation or data-driven projects, it's not only your opportunity, I would even say it's your responsibility. Just take the lead. And then secondly, follow. It's pretty understandable that organizations like us work out their first steps on their own. Trial and error, moving from 0 to 1 with lots of mistakes, figuring things out by themselves. But there's already a friendly community. There are blueprint strategies, there are great concepts, regulatory guidelines, and everything else that you need to actually take the next bigger steps. Just use them. Don't keep inventing the bike on your own. Look at MyData and their perfect job in that sense, for example. And the third one would be just to amplify. And this is what we have tried to do in Ülemiste City as well. We like to think of ourselves as gardeners. We just create that kind of right ecosystem for others to grow. And building that kind of initial greenhouse where data projects can grow takes a lot of work. Building the shades and working on the right soil and fertilizing and watering, it's a lot. But then, if at the right time you plant the right seeds, you can see that the others will succeed, and you have provided the right infrastructure and the right mindset and the right tools for others to actually utilize and grow with their data projects. So lead, follow, amplify. These would be my key takeaways. From our point of view, in 5 years' time, I'm pretty certain that Miner is a data space operator. The operator meaning that we also add value to our clients besides the physical environment with that kind of digital environments and digital capabilities that we provide for the community. And looking from the Estonian perspective, private sector needs to step up, at least in Estonia, to actually take the lead in creating such data spaces, data collectives. Public sector will support that, but I don't see that they would carry this topic with such same effort and ambition that they have done with the X-Road and all the public services. We have all the smartness and those communities and this need in the private sector. There are great partners out there. So I think the key decision point for Estonia, for companies like us today, is to throw this ball in the hands of the private sector and really nudge them to take the lead in this topic.
Very good. Sounds like a great summary. Thank you very much, Silva, for taking the time for presenting your interesting city of Ülemiste, and I think I'm going to visit you rather sooner than later. Thank you.